You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group and co-hosts Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management, Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian from OptionPit.com, Andrew the Rock Lobster Joe Benazzi from OptionPit.com, and Henry the Flowmaster Schwartz from CBOE. The Option Block is brought to you by CBOE. CBOE's suite of S&P 500 index options, SPX and mini S&P 500 XSP options, allows traders to speculate on the direction of the market, generate income, and hedge for downside protection of their portfolio of stocks. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cbo.com/SPX today to learn more. The views expressed herein are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of CBOE Global Markets Incorporated or any of its subsidiaries, collectively CBOE. The information provided is for general education and information purposes only. There are important risks associated with transacting in any of the CBOE products or any of the digital assets discussed here. Before engaging in any transactions in those products or digital assets, it is important for market participants to carefully review the disclosures and disclaimers contained at www.cboe.com/US_disclaimers. These products and digital assets are complex and are suitable only for sophisticated market participants. These products involve the risk of loss, which can be substantial and, depending on the type of product, can exceed the amount of money deposited in establishing the position. Market participants should put at risk only funds they can afford to lose without affecting their lifestyle. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back. It is a Thursday time for everyone's favorite bi-weekly options extravaganza, known around the globe as the Option Block, what the cool kids call the old OB. My name, of course, Mark Longo from the THE, OptionsInsider.com. Back from the Southern studio. Just got back late last night, listeners. But you know what? No rest for the wicked. Right back at it. Right back on the network today. So if I sound like I'm back to normal, that is why. Of course, hope you're having a good start to your trading year out there. A lot of stuff popping off, a lot to get to. Of course, if you like what you hear, you want other people to enjoy the show right along with you, then leave a comment, a rating, a star on this show, on the network, on our app, wherever you get our content. At the end of the day, all of it in aggregate does help new people continue to discover the show. And if you, too, want to discover more great content, awesome pro Q&As, options oddities, exclusive access to some cool stuff, like maybe, no promises, but maybe, this cool panel I have coming up next week with the Flow Master and a bunch of other great people on it. Maybe we'll see if I can sneak a nice recording for that onto our pro. You want to check that out for yourselves. You know where to go, theoptionsinsider.com/pro. The place to go to learn more. Great giveaways, live streams, all that fun, and a whole bunch more. TheOptionsInsider.com/pro. As we go around the horn and see who's joining us on ye old program today. First, let's go out to the quiet, the sleepy hamlet known as St. Charles, where the Uncle Mike Mobile parked in the garage. He's ready to go for the show. He is Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management. Uncle Mike, welcome back to the show. How many miles on ye old Uncle Mike mobile these days?
Yeah, not too many. No, why would I ever want to leave St. Charles?
Except for your beloved client visits, which we know are a staple.
Oh, yes, that's true. We got to do that. But no, not too many miles. Just doing a lot of phone annual reviews this time of year. So it's pretty busy for me, but get to talk with the clients and catch up on things. So that's always a pleasure.
You see a yellow bug rolling through your town, listeners, got a big Uncle Mike face on it. You know, the Uncle Mike mobile has come to your town. And we keep on rolling to his town down to the Southern Volatility Mecca, known as Austin, where we are joined once again by the greasiest of meatballs, Mr. Mark Sebastian from OptionPit.com. Mr. Meatball, how are things in the land of Austin, sir?
Things are great. Things are wonderful. It's I think everyone's freaking out because I think it's going to drop below freezing tonight. But today it's sunny. It's nice out. But I guess it's going to be a little cold tonight, so everyone's freaking.
I heard you guys had a crazy drone show for the New Year. Is that correct?
I was in Chicago for New Year's, so I didn't see it.
You saw our fireworks here instead, which I missed because I was in the Southern studio. So everybody missing everything this year on the New Year. Speaking of missing things, our good buddy, the Flow Master, missing today. But don't worry, listeners, we have an able stand-in. Our good friend, Mr. Kevin Carter, also from CBOE Global Markets. Kevin, welcome back to the Option Block, sir.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me back. Appreciate it.
Are you beaming in from Chi-Town? You beaming in from CBOE East? Where are you joining us from?
I am joining us from Charleston, South Carolina. That's where I usually hang my hat.
CBOE Super East and a little bit south.
Super Southeast. Yeah, exactly. So we actually had some weather this week as well. We had my kids had a day off of school on Tuesday due to a wind advisory. So, coming from Chicago where we had snow days, I've never had a wind day. So, it's you live and learn down here.
Yeah, I was down in the Southern studio for the better part of the last few weeks. And yes, they were closing schools for wind down there as well. So crazy stuff afoot. Is there crazy stuff afoot in the markets? Let's find out, listeners. It's time for the Trading Block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the Trading Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Trading Block. If you're one of our many new listeners to join us on the new year, here, welcome. This is the portion of the show where we break down what the heck is trading, what is lighting up our screens out there. And man, it's another interesting start to an interesting year. We started the year, listeners, pretty firmly in the red. Then over the last few sessions, we had a little bit of a lift, a little bit of reversal, starting to threaten that 4,800 level everyone's been talking about for a while. And then coming into the start of the session today, it seemed like we were heading back to the dark side, and they did take it down pretty low this morning. It got down threatening 47.40. Didn't quite break it, bounced off it, but we got down to right around 47.40, listeners. Seems like the turnaround, at least for now, is back in. S&P still off about 0.5%, but it has bounced off that 47.40, threatening right around 47.60 now. So nice little bit of a whipsaw action going on out there. Is this just a head fake? Is this the turnaround? I guess we'll find out. All that being reflected in our vol friends as well, listeners. They're all pretty much down across the board, if ever so slightly. VIX leading the charge, down about 0.5 point right now, at about a 1280 when we kicked off the show. So down about 0.5 point from the Monday show. VVIX looking pretty anemic at about a 79, down 3 points. We got to go back a ways to find the last time we had a 70 handle in the vol of vol. It used to be in the before times, the pre-pandemic times, VVIX would have a nice range. It would gently drift, usually down to about a 75. And that's where things would start to get frothy. It would stabilize there, and then things would turn around. Then, of course, we had the pandemic era, and VVIX was in triple digits for years, and everything was out the window. And now maybe are we back to a little bit of, shall we say, a semblance of normalcy? I guess we'll find out. VVIX down 3 points from the Monday show. VXX at a 15 even, down about 0.2 point. UVXY at an 8 even, down about 0.1 point. So we're looking at some nice even numbers today, except for SVIX, 38.75, up 0.5 point. I have to believe that is, if not a new all-time high, right on top of it. Let's see, SVIX. Oh, it hit 40.25 today. That would be the new all-time high. So a little bit off of that, but still looking pretty robust. In fact, as I'm looking at it right now that was 38.75 when we kicked off the show, but of course it has since shall we say, spun up a bit. It's up to about a 39.5 as VIX has turned around again. So that would put it up over a point now, about 1.25 points from the Monday show out there. And UVIX is at about a 1230, down about 0.7 of a point, as it seems like, at least for now, the markets have stabilized, sell-off has stabilized, and vol seemingly has stabilized, which means UVIX, look out below. And let's look out around the horn, see what everyone has catching their eye and lighting up their tape here in the second week of the new year. Kevin, we'll start with you as our guest. What is catching your eye out there in the markets today?
Today, paid attention to CPI this morning, which came, I guess, in a little bit hot. Took a minute or so, when we opened, but the rug pull certainly showed up. And a lot of names definitely, traded off hard. I'm looking here at Coinbase. We had a lot of news there with the Bitcoin ETFs. Coinbase was almost $20 off its high this morning. And I'm also looking at, where strength is still strength. And that's, looking at Netflix, NVIDIA, Abercrombie, those names are still bucking that trend. Netflix is higher on the day still. NVIDIA's still higher on the day, $12 off the low. So it seems like tech has still got that, that extra bid to it. And but I do think Coinbase and Tesla and some of these other ones are starting to get a little squirrely to the downside. So we'll see how, that mega cap tech can keep the others in line. But it definitely feels a little shaky today. So that's kind of what I'm looking at.
Has there been a better example in recent memory of buy the rumor, sell the fact than the whole Bitcoin ETF?
The Bitcoin trade seemed pretty obvious, right?
Goodness. Man.
As soon as all those ETFs rolled out, it was like everyone sold the news. Even ARKB is down on the lows of the day here. So we'll see how that digests.
Yeah, everyone following that old playbook out there in Bitcoin land. My goodness. So we have a poll about that. We'll get to that a little bit later. But yeah, fascinating stuff afoot out there. Even Uncle Mike can't look askance at these markets today with all the action going on out there. Speaking of Uncle Mike, we'll give him a chance to defend himself. We'll go out to the quiet, the sleepy hamlet known as St. Charles. Uncle Mike, how much Bitcoin have you bought since it started turning to the dark side? And what else is catching your eye out there, sir?
I've actually bought over twice as much Bitcoin since it turned to the dark side as before the dark side. What do you think about that?
Dang, that's a lot of Bitcoin. 2 times 0, that's a lot of Bitcoin.
3 times 0, yes. So, yeah, I can't say that been really following Bitcoin ultra closely, but it's definitely entertaining to look at, that's for sure. But I think just with inflation numbers that are coming up in the marketplace, not to steal a page from around the block, that I think that's going to be the big story of the market in terms of where we're at. Right now, with what's happening today, so to speak, is that we don't have any like major sell-offs in any of the sectors that are happening, but we do have a little bit of sales going in the financials. For example, just looking at XLF, that's down just under 1% on the day. With the down market with technology in that sector, XLK, that's only down 1/3%. So that's holding relatively strong, but we really don't have an overly powerful sell-off happening today. And I think in a lot of cases, it's just because of the fact that we're waiting on inflation data. The big story for us this week is that we had a covered call on Juniper, and Juniper is getting bought out, it looks like. So obviously, it's good that we are going to make our max profit on that covered call, but it's never fun when, I shouldn't say never, it's a lot more fun than had it gone halfway down, but it's always something to where we were at the 28 strike price, and it went up to 37, but we were happily making income month in, month out on it for quite a while, actually. And then just all of a sudden it goes up $9 in a day or whatever it was. So that's kind of the big story in our world of what's happening right now with the stocks that we are working with. Just some other names that we're following that are moving. Netflix is up 1.7% on the day. Tesla is down 3% on the day. And the fruit company is down 1% on the day, and we all know that it's mathematically impossible for the market to go higher if Apple's not going higher. Just kidding, of course, but it sure seems that way.
That is a proven fact. We have established that on this show, Uncle Mike. No one can dispute it now. If Apple is red, the market must be red. It is the statistical certainty out there. And hey, we tell everybody on this show, right? You get called away on your calls, you win. So you have to be happy, Uncle Mike, at the end of the day. Better, you're right. Better than having stock get cut in half. I think you'll take that any day. So
no question.
So fun stuff out there. Let's now turn to the land of mystical drones and volatility known as Austin. Mr. Meatball, sir, what's catching your eye out there in an interesting second trading week of the new year?
Yeah, a really interesting open. I was shocked when we actually opened up, and then they turned around and dumped it. We're getting kind of a little bit of a midday bounce here. I'm interested to see whether that gets some follow through here or whether this is a little bit of a rope-a-dope. Feels like we got pretty aggressively bought over the last, beginning of the week. So I wouldn't be surprised if we do get a little bit of selling into the close. I don't know. Earlier, I thought today could be one of those really bad parabolic days, but right now, it looks like it's just going to be a down day.
Yeah, I've washed my hands of being surprised at the market's reaction to inflation data because it just seems like the whims of the market are all over the place. Some days good data is good data. Some days good data is bad data. Some days they do it both in the same day. Sometimes within a few minutes of each other. It is definitely an intriguing and some might say frustrating art to watching the market's reaction to inflation data out there. So instead, let's keep on rolling. Let's talk about some things we can actually sink our teeth into and wrap our heads around, listeners. Actual concrete data. Let's go out to the land of the VIX first. Let's fire up the Flowmaster and Kevin's trade alert machine, see what kind of data we can find out there today. Let's go out first to the land of the VIX. And, a little bit of whipsaw-y action is usually pretty decent for the VIX, and that seems to be the case today. It's looking respectable out there today. Not quite the explosion that we had on Monday with over 700,000 contracts on the tape this time of day. But again, respectable, 379,000. Also, that looks good when we see that the ADV was just about 600,000 on our last show. It's up to 672 now. Again, reflecting that explosion of paper we had on the Monday show. So VIX starting to claw its way out of its seasonal doldrums, at least from a volume perspective. We'll see if we can keep this up. And again, a little bit of whipsaw action, a little bit of red on the tape intraday. That usually helps drum up some action out there in VIX land. No crazy tsunami of paper, again, like the Monday show, but intriguing stuff nonetheless. You want to see a tsunami of paper, though, listeners. Man, SPY is telling VIX to hold my beer out there today, listeners. SPY, again, a good whipsaw. Always good for a little bit of broad index action. SPY already 6.41 million contracts. That looks even better. You see the ADV is about 7.5 million, listeners. And that's already pretty frothy. And SPY is already almost there. So, man, they're loving themselves some whipsaws. A lot of zero-day fun being had out there today. That's going to be a big discussion point, spoiler alert, for that session we're doing with the Flowmaster next week. All sorts of zero-day fun. Is it good? Is it bad? Barron's coming out this weekend saying it's bad. So all sorts of fun. All sorts of contentious viewpoints on this zero-day stuff. We'll get to the heart of it next week. Right now, though, 6.41 million. That's also being carried over into the S, listeners. SPX also on the rampage today. 2.21 million contracts on the tape out there in the S. The ADV, about 3.25. Yeah, I'm going to do it just because I'm a glutton for punishment list. I'm going to look right now. Top 20. Take a guess really quickly in your head. How many of the top 20 most active contracts in the SPX are expiring, or I should say are not expiring today? If you answered 0, you've been listening. Yes, 0. All of the top 20 most actives, again, expiring today. That's a boatload of paper, including 53,000 of the 4730 puts. That's the big dog out there today for number 1 in the S. If we go out to the top 40, guess how many of the top 40 are not expiring today? If you answered 0, you are also correct. 40 of the top 40. We are 40 for 40, listeners, in terms of SPX paper on a very busy day, all of it expiring today. Again, just a sea change in the way people approach this product, which is, I don't think we've all collectively come to grips with yet in the market. A very different beast than it was, let's say, a year ago out there in SPX land. Either way, a lot of paper on the tape. We've been so caught up in all this talk about Bitcoin and markets and everything, we forgot about our old friend small caps. They are not feeling their oats today, off about 1% right now, but a fair amount of paper on the tape for small caps. IWM right now closing in on 1 million contracts already, 972,000 contracts on the tape right now. The ADV 1.36 million, so seems like we're going to hit that out there today. Again, small caps, one of the intriguing stories we've been keeping an eye on out here this year. Are they going to move to the beat of their own drummer again? Are they going to maybe have an outperformance year versus the Magnificent Seven? All sorts of narratives surrounding small caps this year. So a fun one to keep an eye on. And of course, let us not forget our old friend, the Qs. 2.85 million, the ADV about 3.39 million. So the Qs already almost at a day's worth of volume as well. So again, a robust start to the morning out there. Let's see if that robust start has carried over into the single names. Is it a banger single name day, or is everybody just slinging 0-day SPX and saying the hell with everything else? The answer is yes, it is a banger single name day. And no, they are not just saying the hell with everything else. Because, man, almost 300,000. That's what it cost you to break into the top 10 today. 292,000. It's been a while since we've seen a robust day like that. That gets us to our old friend, what some folks used to call the Widowmaker. I'm not sure what this name is called anymore. Just a hot mover right now. This is Netflix, up 11 and a quarter, or 2.3%, trading 489.60. Again, good for 292,000 contracts on the tape. Number 9, another one that's seen a lot of action of late. For a lot of you, this is one of your popular crypto surrogates. Uncle Mike, cover your ears, because we're going to talk about Riot Blockchain at number 9. 310,000 contracts on the tape for that one. Again, has there been a better example of buy the rumor, sell the fact than all these names? This one off $2.50 today, trading 13 even, off nearly 16% just today. Man, this trade has been just something to watch. It was 1660 just yesterday coming into the close. So this thing just getting annihilated out there. And again, good for 310,000 contracts. Right behind it, I think we got a theme to our top 10 today, listeners. Uncle Mike, you may want to tune out for the entirety of the top 10 because you're not going to like most of it. Number 8, we've got Coinbase, as Kevin was just alluding to earlier. 329,000 contracts on the tape for Coinbase. 142.82, off $8.50 or 5.6%. Again, just a literal buy the rumor, sell the fact run on this name for quite some time. Everyone thought the approval was going to be just the floodgates to the upside. I think saner, cooler, calmer heads could probably see this one coming. And looks like a lot of you did. Number 8, Coinbase, 329,000. Number 7, the chip zone coming a little early. It's AMD, 455,000. 146.94, off about $1.60 or 1% today. And again, good for 455,000 contracts on the tape. Keeping it in the A tech names. For number 6, the Amazonians, 527,000 contracts. Amazon popping today, 154.89, up about $1.16 or about 0.75%. And again, good for some decent paper, 527,000. Nothing to write home about, but impressive nonetheless. Number 5, we've got good old Softy coming a little higher than usual today. 383 and about a third, up about $0.50. Of course, it is CES week, so a lot of these tech names, they're always shining on a given day in the market, but we're seeing a lot of highlights on what's going on in the tech sector this week. So Softy getting a little bit more love out there. They're tussling with Apple now. Microsoft and Apple tussling it out for the most valuable public company on the planet. So, man, crazy times we are out there. Number 5, 564,000 contracts. For Softy, speak of the devil, number 4, all the way down at number 4, listeners. It's the Fruit Company, 571,000 contracts on the tape for them. 184.70, off about $1.50. Uncle Mike just talking about this one. Can the market possibly close green when Apple is red? I think we have established that is a statistical impossibility at this point. Cannot be done ever. I don't want to hear any discussions to the contrary. Apple, number 4, 571,000 contracts. Number 3, Uncle Mike, cover your ears again. It is Marathon Digital Holdings, your preferred digital vector for a little bit of crypto exposure in your securities account. That is optionable, of course. You guys usually go to Mara. It has the highest ADV. ADV exceeded, I think, 500,000 contracts this week. So serious volume going up in Marathon these days. And again, turning right back down the other side. $22 right now, off 360 or 14%. My goodness, Marathon on. Let's just see how much paper is going. Let's fire up the old trade alert machine again. Let's see how much paper is going up in Marathon right now. Again, we have 890,000 contracts. It's up to 905 now. And 496,000 is the ADV. So again, threatening 500,000 contracts a day in Marathon. Man, you folks slinging yourselves some Marathon. Again, good for number 3. Number 2, listeners, you can probably guess number 2 and number 1 now, unless you haven't been paying attention. What order will they be in, though? Because they did flip last episode. Will it remain that way? I'll give you a couple seconds to guess before I reveal the answer. Number 2, listeners, it is NVIDIA, 1.22 million. So NVIDIA falling to the number 2 spot today, $549.51, up $6 and a penny, or a little over 1%. So another day that ends in Y, and NVIDIA in the green. Good for 1.22 million. That means the big dog, once again, is Tesla. Can it keep the throne this year, or will NVIDIA finally topple it? Maybe will Apple regain its luster? Tesla is the answer today, 1.57 million. Tesla looking firmly in the red. 226.66 right now, off 7.25 or a little over 3%. So as Kevin was alluding to earlier, a lot of red on the screen out there in Tesla land. As for the rest of this week, if you're looking for a little bit of earnings magic, earnings love, and Tilray and Helena Troy weren't getting it done for you, well then don't worry, listeners. Tomorrow, we are back in action in earnest. It all kicks off again tomorrow. We've got Delta Airlines, we got Bank of America, we got Wells Fargo, we got Citi, we got JP Morgan Chase. We've got all the financials. And when the financials are popping off, that is the unofficial starting bell to earnings season proper, listeners. So we have all the data for you right now up there on the site. For the most recent season, we went out at 119%. So vol buyers, that was the order of the day last cycle. That was obviously 19 points above our long-term average, which is exactly 100% right now, which in and of itself is also kind of weird. We do have some earnings move results right now. KB Homes, after the bell yesterday, they were at 63.20 going into their announcement. They were pricing in 5.7%. They delivered 1.4%. So a little bit of dramatic underperformance there for KB Homes. So not every name is blowing the doors off, but a few are. Let's look ahead to tomorrow, shall we? Bank of America tomorrow. They were at 33.60 when we ran this report. They were pricing in $1.04. In the past, they've moved 84 cents. So 20 more cents of extra juice. Again, the more juice is better camp coming in hot this cycle. Citi tomorrow as well. 53 even is where they were trading. They were pricing in 209. In the past, they moved about $1.75. So again, more juice for Citi. Delta Airlines, 42.11 is where they were trading. They were pricing in $1.63. In the past, they moved $1.30. So over 30 cents more juice for Delta Airlines. Let's see if the trend continues in JP Morgan. Also tomorrow before the bell, 171 even is where they were trading. They were pricing in 467. Oh, in the past, they moved 491. So JP Morgan, the lone name here of these top ones we're looking at to buck the trend. Let's keep going. Let's go to Wells Fargo. They're also tomorrow. 49 even is where they were trading. They're pricing in $1.53. In the past, they moved to $1.88. So it is not universal by any means, but it's looking like a pretty strong trend. Let's go out to Goldman Sachs. They're next week. 382 is where they were trading. They were pricing in $11.11. In the past, they moved 10.25. So Goldman packing in nearly a full dollar worth of extra juice out there. You want more financials? How about PNC, listeners? 16th before the bell, 155.20 is where they were trading. They're pricing in nearly $5. In the past, they've moved 360. So a whole heck of a lot of juice out there in PNC. Let's go out to the banking side. Banking and I should say brokerage side. Let's go out to good old Chucky Schwab, 17th before the bell. 65.80 is where they were trading. They're pricing in 283. In the past, they moved 274. So slightly more juice. So in aggregate, listener, it looks like we have a lot of the big names still pricing in more juice. If you want to see the specific name you're interested in, only one place to go, listeners, theoptionsinsider.com. Click on the Options News and Articles tab. By the way, right now, hot off the presses with 5 names reporting for this season, we're at a whopping 126% for this cycle. Again, only 5 names reporting so far. So read into that with a bit of a grain of salt, but we'll keep these numbers updated for you. You folks, as always, can check them for yourselves for free because we like you. TheOptionsInsider.com. Click on the Options News and Articles tab to begin your journey to the dark side as we continue our journey into the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by TheOptionsInsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody, let's get weird, let's get wild, let's get a little whimsical, shall we? Let's actually kick things off. We've got some listener fun. Let's go out to a listener comment about a name we were just talking about. In fact, Kevin, your compatriot, the Flowmaster, was the one who kind of highlighted this one last week. This is everyone's favorite. This is Synovus Energy, ticker symbol CVE, or as we call it on the show here, CAVE. Trading $15.99 today, so off about 15 cents or about 1% today. But as you'll recall, listeners, Henry was all over this one on the last show. We've talked about it a few times on the Odd Block and on Oddities over the last few months. It's been kind of a frequent offender. But Henry was all over it last week on the show. He talked about someone coming in and scooping 10,000 of the Feb 17 calls for around 67 cents average price. They did a total of 15,000, I believe, on the day. They actually paid 65 to 70 cents for it to open. So that was a pretty popular trade. And then we had a listener chime in this week, coming in from StockTwits. We don't talk about StockTwits that often, but I know a lot of you folks consume and engage with our content over there. In fact, our StockTwits audience almost as big as the Twitter audience. So welcome to all you folks on StockTwits. We don't reference you all the time, but we know you're out there. We love you all out there. This is why I always like this handle. Ron is wrong. You're listening to this show, so you can't be that wrong, Ron. But he said, hey, Mark, you had CBE on your unusual options segment last week. Those Feb 17s, they keep adding day after day. Open interest now at 42,000 with 28,000 volume today. And Ron, you're not wrong. You are entirely correct. They have been all over these Feb 17s since we first talked about them with Henry a week ago. This thing has been all over the place. They've been adding to their position, seems like pretty much every day, with prices from around 55 cents up to about 70 cents. That seems to be the range out there. So there's a total right now of about 70,000 open on this strike. And I'm looking here right now. They've been just piling into this bad boy pretty much every day. We talked about it last week on the 4th. 15,000 went up that day. 15,000 again the next day on the 10th. 17,000 traded the day before. Actually, no, a couple days later on the 8th as well. So they've been all over. 34,000 more on the 9th. On the 5th, they did 11,000, almost 12,000 more. So again, a total of 70,000. They've been pretty much lifting offers on most of these, again, in ranges from 55 to 70 cents, it seems like, for most of them. And as Henry pointed out, it was interesting timing for these as well. These expire on the 16th, which is one day after earnings. So all this volume is going to get you a nice big earnings pop potentially at the end of it, the last day as well. So this has been fascinating paper. Obviously, it's fascinating a lot of our listeners as well, and it continues to grow. Kevin, we'll start with you. I'm curious if you caught the Flowmaster segment last week, if you are indeed intrigued by this CAVE Feb 17 paper and the fact that they continue to open it heading into earnings, sir.
Yeah, I mean, it's intriguing. There's another 3,500 in that call trading today, and that open interest is certainly 70,000. I did a little bit of looking into it. I mean, they have some warrants that they're retiring, and that could add to, as that goes off, they might want to add to some, either dividends or share buyback. So there could be a corporate action that people are playing for. But I mean, it's not a historical, volatile earnings mover either. I mean, it's a lifetime 3.5% mover. So it doesn't really scream like this is an earnings play. It doesn't look like it's a directional play on the chart either. The chart doesn't scream like this is going to break out. So it's confusing. It's either somewhat maybe related to another structured product out there, or it's just downright speculation. And if it's downright speculation, they're doing it in quite large fashion. So I don't know. This one's a conundrum for me because it just doesn't have the attributes unless you kind of know something, that the public doesn't know. So maybe I'll leave it at that. But either there's a corporate action that I'm unaware of, or there's just inside information floating around out there.
Yeah, we don't talk about the warrants market too much here on the show for obvious reasons. Not the most liquid thing on the planet, and not for a lot of you, it's not really that readily accessible. Nor would you need it. You have a listed options market. You don't really need the warrants. But an intriguing use case, perhaps swapping some warrants. If you're going to do that, though, would you go to Feb or would you go a little bit longer term? That'd be a weird use case for Feb. But again, we've seen weirder things out there. By the way, you talked about the chart there, Kevin. On the year, the high for CBOE looks like it came right around 21 and a third back right before Halloween last year. And the low was around $15, which $14.97 actually was right around May of last year. So they're about $1 off their lows for the year. So maybe that's someone who thinks they're poised for some upside. Mr. Meatball, sir, I'm curious what you think about Henry and clearly some of our listeners' favorite name, Cave, and the fact that they keep piling into these Feb 17, sir.
Yeah, it is interesting. I've seen this trade go up a couple of times, and so far no good on these. They're not getting a lot of love here, but that open interest is really ballooning. It's up to 70,000. More trading today. Every time we've seen these huge orders, they've not panned out, but this one seems to have some conviction. Its earnings are the day before these expire, so really interested in what's going to end up happening here.
Yeah, the timing is interesting. Our chat is loving this. They're all over this. Options Queen is right. She says, Ron seems right. CBE is interesting right now. You are not wrong. And he is not wrong. You're right. It is an interesting name to keep an eye on. The timing is certainly interesting. So definitely one we'll keep an eye on heading into earnings. And certainly as if they continue to pile on, as the Meatball alluded to, they haven't been right so far. So if you piggybacked on these early on, you're kind of wearing it a little bit. But I guess if you loved them, or I should say if you liked them for 70, you got to love them for 55 cents, right? That's how that math goes. So intriguing stuff for right now. Before I keep going, Kevin, our buddy, the Flowmaster, always comes armed with some intriguing trades and or data he wants to highlight on the show. So if you have any similar trades that are lighting your world on fire right now you want to share with the audience, have at it, Mr. Kevin.
I'm looking today. Honestly, it's like these volumes that come out. I was thinking about this. This happened to me in U.S. Steel not long ago, where there was that weird weekly call buyer, and sure enough, that deal came out on Monday. So, these volumes are very important to pay attention to because we just don't know all the time what's going on. But near term wise, not a lot sticking out. There's a lot of ARK sellers today in near term, ARKK. Which is actually taking vol down. I find that pretty interesting. In a lot of these Bitcoin names, as you see these stocks come off hard, there's a lot of volume, but those vols are down. So like Marathon, that's off 25, 30% intraday, and the vol's actually lower. So it's just fascinating to see how these names have different breadth on as they go up versus how they go down. They almost just have their own agenda. But yeah, those are just some of the ones that have kind of stuck out to me as just those. But that's all I have. Thanks.
All right. So he mentioned your favorite, Mr. Meatball, good old ARK. But another favorite you've had, and a lot of our listeners have had, we talked about it once or twice in recent history. This is Goodyear Tire, ticker symbol GT. Kind of unched right now, trading right around 13.30, kind of vacillating today. On the year, it's been a different story, though. A year ago, it was about 11 3/4, so it's up about $1.50, almost $1.60 on the year, so about 13.5%. So a nice little run for GT. They actually crushed it back in the contagion fear era, below $10, $9.86. Then it exploded. In particular, it looks like they had a management that proposed an overhaul back in May, and it went from $10.50 almost overnight to about 15, so about a 21% gap, pretty much within a session or so. So that was a nice pop. They continued rallying through the midsummer for their high for the year of about $16.50. And then it seems like the bloom came off the rose. They had a bad earnings report in early August, and that clipped them back down to about $12, and they kept selling off down to about $11.50 in October before rallying again back to about 15 even in mid-December. So they had a bit of a comeback, and now they're coming back off that again, back to $13.30. Still up on the year, but not quite as robust of a love story as it was a few months ago. But you know what? Speaking of love, somebody loves it again today. At least seems like they do. Because somebody coming in and gobbling up some more February upside, this time the Feb 15s. We first noticed them coming in and scooping 2,453 again of the Feb 15s for 21 cents. It's about a 46 vol, listeners. The stock was a little bit lower, actually, 13.13. So they got a little bit of a lift on the stock. And then they came in, bought 1,100 more for about 25 cents. They also got 1,000 for 20. They kept coming back, a total of over 7,000 as we were getting into the start of the show. Let's just see if any more have piled in. No, still about 7,000 on the day. So Feb 15's all the rage. I know, Mr. Meatball, this is a name you were watching. You did some piggybacking, I believe, on some trades on GT last year. What are your thoughts on someone coming back to bat here in Goodyear Tire and Rubber, sir?
So these guys have generally done a pretty good job of being somewhat right. So I'm interested to see whether what kind of comes of this purchase. Goodyear certainly does move around a bunch. So that activist buyer keeps trying to, and they've been talking about doing some divestitures. So this is one that's worth taking a hard look at for sure.
Kevin, same question for you, sir. Goodyear Tire is one that's been on our radar before in the past. I know the Meatball has been watching it pretty intently over the last few months as well. Seems like someone coming back to play this time on the Feb 15s. What are your thoughts, sir?
Yeah, definitely. 7,300 go up today. I mean, that's a huge block versus very little open interest. Now, there is still quite a bit in April. That looks like there's the lion's share of the term structures located in the April calls. And maybe they're just kind of replacing some of these upside Jan. There's a lot of upside Jan open interest that is kind of worthless. So maybe they're just redoing the trade. But yeah, I mean, definitely something to pay attention to. These, they've had success in the past, and perhaps they're just, reloading here. So I'm definitely watching that. And vols are up correspondingly today too on these big blocks. So.
There you go. Let's get out of here on the odd block with this. Let's roll over some of these long-term puts. Let's go out to some. We've been tracking so many trades. We probably should pay off some of these. Let's go out to our show from December 11th, listeners. Let's go back to Caesars Entertainment, ticker symbol CZR. Easy for me to say. Trading today right around $45, off about half a buck or about 1%. But back on December 11th, we talked about somebody coming in and scooping. Well, before we get there really quick, let me look at the chart here for the year on Caesars. A year ago was 45.83, so kind of about where it is right now. Kind of a bit of a lost year for Caesars. They rallied it to its high of, looks like about 60 and a quarter back in July, and the low came right around Halloween of about 38 and a third. Again, they're trading about $45 right now, so kind of in the middle of that range. And we saw somebody back in December thinking there was some more upside to be had in Caesars. They came and scooped 10,001 of the Dees 47 calls. They paid 23 cents for these bad boys. The stock at the time, $44.06. Looks like they were hoping for some upside. They didn't have that long of a trade. It was only a few weeks, really. And you know what? They actually worked out pretty well for this person. They didn't have to wait long at all. In fact, the stock closed at right around $48 on expiration, which would have been obviously pretty much a pretty good winner on these, but they didn't even wait that long. They started taking them off a few days after we profiled. They started dumping them on December 14th for prices around $2. So they made about $1.80 on these calls. That's, as I like to say, a pretty good do, listeners, when the stock was $49.12. So they had excellent timing on these. They scooped them early. They got out of Dodge early. If they had waited to expiration, they still would have made money on a decent amount of money on their trade, but they kind of hit the apex on this. So they ended up pocketing nearly $2 million, about $1.8 million. Mr. Meatball, we always joke about the people we profile here forgetting to take things off or leaving a lot of money on the table, but not the case here in Caesars. They came, they saw, and they conquered, sir. What say you?
Yeah, nice job. I mean, I wish more traders would do this and take, the whole point of a good trade is that you take profits. And I'm hoping more people see this trade and follow suit.
Indeed. As we keep on rolling, time for you folks to make your voices heard. Time for a little bit of the old mail block.
It's time to take your seat on the All-Star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the Mail Block.
All right, everybody. It's like some folks on Stock Twits talking more about Cave and about how maybe there's a pipeline going up, and maybe that's what people are speccing on for this trade. So intriguing stuff on those CVE calls. Speaking of intriguing stuff, we got some intriguing questions of the week. Before we get to there, let's pay off the one we had last year, our annual sentiment poll. We always kick off the year with some sentiment polls. Got some more for you this week. But we said last week, Happy New Year. It's time for our annual sentiment poll. If you had to buy a 10% out of the money call expiring at the end of the year on one of the following asset classes, which one are you going to choose? VIX, equities, fixed income, or crypto? And VIX/vol took it 41.7%. I could see that one. It's just a easy logistics one. It's easy for VIX. When we posted this, it was around a 13 or 12.5. Can easily move 1.2, 1.3 points in the span of a few minutes. So just logistically, VIX is an easy choice. I think that's why it took it. 33.3%, so exactly a third going equities. 16.7%, a lot of you caught up in the Bitcoin ETF approval hype. So nearly 17% of you going for crypto. Can't argue. Hasn't been a bad trade really until today in the last couple of months. And only 8.3% going on the Uncle Mike train of the 10 years. So no love for the fixed income. Kevin, we will start with you. SIBO obviously getting deep into the weeds of all things crypto futures on Bitcoin. And I believe ETH coming in a couple of weeks now. So definitely something you folks are attuned to. If you have your druthers in terms of, do you think now that the Bitcoin is approved, will Bitcoin close positive on the year? Have at it. And then B, more importantly, what do you think our audience is voting for, Kevin? Are they heck yes, heck no, or they don't trade crypto?
I'd imagine the audience is probably heck yes. I don't know. I mean, it's probably good for the product that you're listing these ETFs. But with it being near, 47,000, it's kind of middle of that huge range it's been in. I'd be hard pressed to say it's higher at the end of the year, but that's just my limited ignorance of crypto. So
you're gonna have to get up to speed on that stuff pretty quick, launching in a couple of weeks over there. Also,
it's a lot to learn. There's so many darn products.
That's true. So. It is quite the market. You should check out our crypto rundown show. We'll help get you up to speed there, Mr. Kevin. But since we're talking sentiment, I'll also get your thoughts on our actual question of the week, not just our flash poll. We're asking everybody right now. Again, quite simply, another sentiment poll. Do you think the S&P 500 will close positive on the year? Heck yes, heck no, or who cares? I'm in crypto. See the aforementioned poll. So, Kevin, where do you fall? Where do you think our audience is falling?
I would put that in the heck yes category. I think it's going to close higher on the year. I still think there's, plenty of there's enough doubters out there on this rally too. So it's not like we've all bought into it. It's not like we're all high-fiving this. So sentiment-wise, there's still plenty of room to run before we get extreme on the bullishness. So, which is a good sign.
There we go. And I think he is awake from his nap now. We go back to the hinterlands of Chicago. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, 2 questions for you. First off, do our listeners, I know what your vote is, do our listeners think that Bitcoin will close positive on the year now that the ETF has been approved? Heck yes, heck no, or I don't trade crypto? And then, of course, again, I know what your vote is, but what is our audience voting for in our annual sentiment poll? Will the S&P close positive on the year? Heck yes, heck no, or I'm in crypto? I need 2 answers from you, sir.
Well, I think from the audience standpoint, I think the audience is actually going to have more of a bearish sentiment because it's you have those the ETFs out now, or you have the funds out now to where, excuse me, you can buy it more easily theoretically. But I think that the audience thinks that it's already played out. That's my theory on what the audience thinks. I know that the people on the Crypto Rundown would probably disagree with my sentiment of the audience, but that's how I feel. And in terms of the market at the end of the year, I think the audience is bullish as well. So I think the audience agrees with me on this one, and we'll see what the poll says.
Mr. Meatball, you get the final word, sir, on both of our polls. Now that the Bitcoin ETF is approved, do people think Bitcoin will close positive on the year? Heck yes, heck no, or they don't trade crypto. And in terms of our annual index sentiment poll, quite simply, will the S&P 500 close positive on the year? Heck yes, heck no, or who cares, I'm in crypto? Mr. Meatball, where are you falling? Where's our audience falling?
The audience is thinking up on the year on crypto. And for the market, I think they're bullish too. So, bull.
Bull across the board. Let's see what our audience is up to. Again, the Bitcoin one's just a flash poll. Just went live pretty much right before showtime. So kind of a fun little one. And right now, almost pretty much 2/3, 66.7% saying, heck yes, Bitcoin will close positive on the year. 20% of you saying you're in the Uncle Mike camp saying you don't trade crypto, and 13.3% saying heck no. Interesting, because most of the crypto names are blood red today, and yet the sentiment still strong. So the hodlers out there living it up. And then, of course, our actual sentiment poll for the year here. Will the S&P close positive on the year? Heck yes, taking it with 73.3%. So the bulls coming out in force out there this week. 21.7% saying heck no. Only 5% saying who cares, I'm in crypto. We've had a bunch of write-in votes. So, if I had to do this one again, I probably would add a fourth write-in to say who cares, I'm in blank. Because that's what a lot of you have been writing in. We have White Truck saying, who cares, I'm selling vol. We have Pariah Pants saying, who cares, I make money in either direction. So a lot of write-ins. A write-in for the vol would have been kind of fun maybe too. So a fourth write-in option would be fun. But either way, if you want to play in those, at options on Twitter is the place to go. Listeners, you got a few hours left. The flash poll will be going through the end when the podcast goes live later today. And of course, our question of the week live throughout the rest of the week. So get over there if you haven't yet at options and make your voice heard as we keep rolling and go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, everyone, let's see what everyone's keeping an eye on around the block. Mr. Meatball, we'll start with you. We got so busy talking about all this other crazy stuff. We didn't even have a chance to touch on your little 0-day minute. It's quite a 0-day fiesta out there today. So if you have any 0-day fun that's catching your eye, you want to share with our listeners, have at it. And then B, what are you keeping an eye on for the rest of the week until not the Monday show, because we're closed for MLK on Monday. So until next Thursday.
We've got PPI tomorrow. That's going to be a big deal. And then we've got all the banks tomorrow. So those are the big things I'm watching. And then for today, I'm watching S&P 500 futures. We just crossed back over 4,800. Bond market, believe it or not, the 30-year bond is now green. Pretty incredible move after this CPI. So I'm guessing the bond auction that earlier in the day went pretty well, because otherwise, there's just no way we would be rallying like this.
Yeah, the crazy sell-off has seemed to mitigated quite a bit. And anything really quickly, I know you're all hyped on 0-day, a very 0-day heavy day. Anything catching your eye out there in the 0-day front, Mr. Meatball?
It is volume is just blowing up. And what I will say is that they are consistently underpricing options the day before these events. So, for instance, this morning, I bought the SPX, the SPX 474, 476 strangle expiring tomorrow. They sold to me at $2.35. We can't move at all, and we've already, from when I executed that trade, we've moved over $20. So just the ability to, just how inexpensive these things are. If you want to express an opinion, it is just an unbelievable way to do so.
There you go. Leaning towards the buy side on all things 0 day. Fun stuff. Mr. Kevin, same question for you, sir. Not so much on the 0 day. If you want to chime in on 0 day, you can. But more importantly, what are you keeping an eye on in the markets until our next episode for the option block next Thursday?
Just kind of keeping an eye on some of these stronger names. The Netflixes, Microsoft has been one that a lot of people are hawking pretty hard, and it's doing that breakout right now. So, still keeping an eye on the mega cap tech, and trying to ride those trends. I will keep watching a lot of these Bitcoin names to see how they digest this. There could be definitely some opportunity there. And then as the banks roll out, that's always the first group on the earnings, and they kind of set the tone. So muted, they're expecting 2.5% moves kind of across the board in these earnings or these bank earnings tomorrow. So we'll see how that shapes out. And they've all had gigantic moves since October. So definitely a big report tomorrow.
And last but not least, Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, what are you keeping an eye on until our next episode next Thursday?
Just to echo the sentiment, I mean, interest rates are what it's about right now. So watching that, we have a covered call in JP Morgan. So definitely watching earnings on that tomorrow to see where that goes, and seeing if we can make some all-time highs again. We're theoretically one giant day away from it, but continuing to watch that.
And that, music listeners, means we are done with at least this show today. But don't worry, if you want more content in your lives, I'll be back in a little bit with our good buddy, Mr. Once and Future Dr. Vic's going to be hanging out talking some futures options, all the vol and things like energy products and everything else. So stay tuned for that. If you're listening live, hang out. We'll be back in a little bit with This Week in Futures Options. Of course, those of you on the on-demand side, check it out when it hits the network later on today. But before we go, let's go back around the horn. Kevin, we'll start with you, sir. If folks want to check out all the cool stuff you folks have up your sleeves over there in the land of SIBO, where should they go? What should they do?
They should go to CBOE.com, and you can see we have a lot of different risk products and trade alerts and ways to apprise you of all the different trades that are happening out there. So please come by and check it out.
Check them out, SIBO.com/RMA, the place to go to begin your journey to the dark side. And Mr. Uncle Mike, where should folks go if they want the Uncle Mike mobile to come to their house?
Well, follow me on Twitter at Mike TOSAW, TOSAW, and check out my website, stcharleswealth.com, and set an appointment with me. Would love to talk to any of our listeners.
There you go. And last but not least, Mr. Meatball, if folks want to talk some 0 day fun, where should they go? What should they do?
Yeah, come on out to optionpit.com. I think I'm writing my Trader's Edge every single day. It's worth a read. So, if you're not a subscriber, check it out and follow me on Twitter at OptionPit.
There you go. Follow them on Twitter at OptionPit and check them out over there, optionpit.com. That is the place to go. We've got to get on out of here. Back again in a little bit for This Week in Futures Options, listeners. Then, of course, back again tomorrow, noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern, for a little bit of volatility viewing. And then after that, exclusively for all you pro cats, coming back, maybe we'll have some more CBE on there. Who knows? We'll find out on Options Oddities. A lot of great trades are already starting to get racked up over there. Check it out if you want to learn more, theoptionsinsider.com/pro. Then, of course, we're off again for MLK on Monday, and then back again next Thursday, another episode of the Option Block. Stay safe out there, everybody.
The Option Block is brought to you by SIBO. SIBO's suite of S&P 500 index options, SPX and mini S&P 500 XSP options, allows traders to speculate on the direction of the market, generate income, and hedge for downside protection of their portfolio of stocks. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.sibo.com/SPX today to learn more. The views expressed herein are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of CBOE Global Markets Incorporated or any of its subsidiaries, collectively CBOE. The information provided is for general education and information purposes only. There are important risks associated with transacting in any of the CBOE products or any of the digital assets discussed here. Before engaging in any transactions in those products or digital assets, it is important for market participants to carefully review the disclosures and disclaimers contained at www.cboe.com/US_disclaimers. These products and digital assets are complex and are suitable only for sophisticated market participants. These products involve the risk of loss, which can be substantial and, depending on the type of product, can exceed the amount of money deposited in establishing the position. Market participants should put at risk only funds they can afford to lose without affecting their lifestyle. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.